You know, I think every will they won't they love story should all just sit down somewhere and die. If they're not holding hands by at least season 2, I don't want it. As yes, the dramatic tension of will this couple get together by the end of the series, it can be compelling. Not often, but it can. But when everyone's doing it, we as a society have no patience for it, with probably one of the most frustrating and perplexing examples of this being Sanrio's Aggretsuko. I say perplexing because this show is actually good at writing interesting, relatable love stories, plus all the dilemmas that come with them. Till it came to the endgame. And all that clever writing got thrown out the window as we watched a man wait 5 years to shoot his shot, with everyone else in the show having to pressure her into asking him out. No matter how much I like Haida as a character, when it comes to being the love interest, they completely drop the ball. So let's just break this train wreck down, as I have so many thoughts.
It's straight to the lame guys folder for you forever.
I'm Sarcastic Chorus. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel and be kept up to date on all my animation content. Now, Aggretsuko is all about that repressed agony of being in your early 20s. Working a dead-end job, no plans for the future, shitty bosses, pretending you're okay as you spiral. Dealing with all this, Retsuko's only outlet from her stress is to sing death metal at karaoke. But this is just a release. Actually having to deal with her problems and the struggles of being an adult is what this series is really all about, as our expectations met reality, and now most of us are just trying not to fall down. Now this relatable origami is what makes this show so great, as it takes the aesthetics of a kid's show and uses it to tell stories specifically for adults. It simultaneously appeals to our desire for a simpler, debt-free life, while also showing the adult struggles everyone without rich parents has to go through. Aside from work though, this show really goes all in on the relationship drama. Retsuko is 25 years old, with the topics of marriage and dating constantly looming over her. And she wonders, is this something she wants? Is it just an excuse to not have a job? These are all questions that she has to grapple with, but what makes this show so good at handling this drama is that the focus of the series is always kept where it should be, on her. These men aren't here to sell plushies. They're not here to prove who's best boy, or even get tangled up in the possibility that they're gonna hook up. The men Retsuko dates are all stress tests for her character, to help her question what she wants versus what she needs. We see this with the first guy. No, I don't remember his name, nor is he memorable enough to have one. To give you context of why she dated him, Retsuko was suffering at work, constantly having to force herself to smile and to fake being happy, so to make her situation just a little bit less terrible, she does what we all do. She changes nothing, but now she fantasizes about other things, falling in love with the idea of being able to quit her job and become a housewife, till this want leads her to project all of her feelings on the most boring man in the building. A blank canvas she could pretend was everything that she wanted, all while he does the bare minimum, not making any real effort or investment in the relationship. He's not a bad guy, but he's not what she needs. But she desperately wants to pretend that he is. To have one happy little thing to look forward to make her whole experience at work just a little bit more bearable. Except all this just leads to her pretending again that everything is okay. To lie to her friends and herself that everything is fine. To repeat the same bad coping mechanism she used at work, but now it's with her relationship. She is doubly repressed, and this continues till she finally snaps out of it. It isn't just some placid wallflower, but like some people, she rocks. And when he kind of just has the most mute reaction ever, she breaks up with him, coming away from the experience having learned how to better invest her time and energy into people who actually appreciate her and enjoys being around. This dude does not matter. What matters is how their relationship affects Retsuko, how it causes her to grow as a person. Even when she's offered the complete package, a sleepy-eyed billionaire who loves her, is a nice guy, and wants to whisk her away from her day job to travel on private jets for the rest of their lives. And she turns that down. Not because she doesn't love him, but she realizes that their end goals just aren't compatible, as he doesn't believe in marriage or kids, and dating him she realizes that is something that she really does want in her life. So she breaks it off. And yes, personally, I do think she fumbled the bag.
You should have given him to me!
But I get why she made the decision, as this is all part of her journey to better understand herself. However, while all of this character work is going on, we have Haida.
I should go home.
Look, here's the problem with Haida. He's a great guy, fun character, but the show utterly botches getting him and Retsuko together, with the main reason for that being The show doesn't give him shit to do. For the first 2 seasons, the majority of his existence is just to be that guy friend at work who is floundering on how to ask her out. He's representative of that one work crush who just never figured out how to pull the trigger, talking about it with his coworkers, getting told to just do it, only to do nothing. For the first 2 seasons, it feels like the only point of Haida's character is to pine for Retsuko. All the while, the painful realization dawns on us that this man is endgame. He is the one she is going to end up with. That after spending all this time looking for love, her true one had actually been by her side the whole time. Which, okay, if that's the game plan, the story has to do a good job at convincing us that they are meant for each other. But more importantly, they also have to make us want them to be together. And this is where they f***ed up. Because Haida's whole deal is that he quietly pines for her. And in the blood sport that is Retsuko's love life, he is always on the sidelines, never making moves to have them become a couple, choosing instead to hide his feelings, with his puffball attempts to date her being coded in that awful, this could be a date or it could just be a friend work thing. Haida, and pardon the language, is a gigantic pussy. He continually just refuses to put himself out there, and we just end up repeating the same script each season. Retsuko gets a boyfriend, he gets plastered, beating himself up for not acting, and inevitably whimpering about the other guy, with none of her breakups ever being enough to force him to change his approach. How he was trying to date her in season 1 was the same stuff he was trying to do in season 4. And through all of it, the show is just constantly winking at us that these two are totally gonna get together one day. Haida doesn't do enough to make me feel like he earns this relationship. It just kind of feels like the show was always gonna just hand it to him. And now I say this a lot when it comes to these kinds of will they won't they dynamics, but for most of them, when a story drags out a couple getting together this much, instead of building a case for why they should be together, they unintentionally build a solid one for why they shouldn't. Constantly having to come up with excuses for why they aren't dating kills your enthusiasm for a couple, as it makes you think if they haven't figured out by now, maybe it shouldn't happen. And this just makes any alternative that gets introduced, who would do as little as carry a conversation, feel like a breath of fresh air. Haida is not proactive in making this relationship happen. He's canonically been crushing on her for 5 years. She has been single for pretty much all of it. If he hasn't made it happen by now, it's not a cute crush. It's just kinda sad. Like, shoot your shot or move on, bro. And don't pressure your mutual friend to cockblock your crush at a party. That's just sad and desperate. And that's the vibe you get from Haida. Fundamentally, the series just doesn't give Haida enough to do outside of Retsuko to make his obsession with her more tolerable, with it even going so far as to feel like it retcons out moments just so it could return to the same status quo each season. As in season 1, Haida tentatively confesses his feelings for Retsuko, bumbling through a confession only for us to pan out as he allegedly gives his real one. But season 2? They're just back to being friends, baby! No shift in their dynamic, no real mention of them hanging out for Christmas, just this tepid nodding from the show that it's gonna happen, while utterly failing to make me care. Haida feels like this show's backup guy, not Retsuko's true love. She's finding herself, she's dating other guys, becoming a pop star, and he's just hanging around waiting for it to happen. He's not putting in the work, and shooting the moon with the shy guy act that we're supposed to find cute. Like, it worked for a season, but now it's just annoying. Especially as you realize they're endgame, and the show is wasting your time with everyone else. Not helping any of this is that the show is painfully aware of what it's doing. Everyone else in the cast knows what's going on with Haida and Retsuko. They know that he is desperate to date her, and they're trying to do their best to help him. When season 3 came up, everyone is kind of just tired of it, suggesting that maybe bro, you should just move on. As a new girl walks into his life, Inui. She's cute, shares his love of punk rock, and is actually into him. This girl is putting in the work, throwing him every sign that she is into him, and he is still hung up on Retsuko. Like, I get what they're trying to do here, but it does still feel like a narrative misstep, a bit of a audience public relations kerfuffle, as a large number of us are already tired of Haida not moving on. So for Inui to pop into the story, everyone that thought that was going to be energized into wanting him to just give up already. and fatiguing everyone still holding out hope. Now anyway, she's fine. She checks all the boxes, but I don't think she and Haida would have worked out in the long run. She's honestly too perfect for him, and he would probably look back and resent her and this relationship for how the world kind of peer pressured him into it. It gave us another option, but really that option was just used to reaffirm the other one. Season 3 is very much the point where any lingering interest I had in Haida as the love interest fizzled away, as I was in the move on camp from day 1.5. Watching a character who has spent the previous 2 seasons agonizing over not being able to date this girl, only to spend another season seriously reconsidering it, wasn't the home run it needed to be to win me over, as his indecision tanks the relationship with Inui, highlighting his worst traits, with the impetus to go to Retsuko after she closed herself off from everyone else after nearly being killed, is for an app to tell him that he and Retsuko are soulmates. An app. This man has been hanging around her for half a decade, and suddenly having a personality quiz match them up is a thing that makes him go to her. Like, I understand him needing a sign from the universe that they're gonna work out, but after 5 years and 3 seasons of kinda nothing shipping, I don't find any of this endearing. I like him. I love how he supports Retsuko whenever he can, but I don't like how it's handled, and there's something weird about how the show essentially frames Inui as this temptation. She's almost like this test, to see if he's worthy to love her by rejecting the easy option and to keep pursuing Retsuko, to be true to himself, even though himself has gotten him nowhere. Not to mention, all of this leads to a final conclusion that is a bit of an ethical quagmire, as Retsuko was nearly murdered by a deranged fan who hated her for changing his favorite band. This dude stalked her, doxed her apartment and job, verbally harassed her, before coming at her with a box cutter. And she's only alive because Haida just happened to be there. So after going through all of that, it's very understandable that she would just go to her parents' place and take some time to recover. That is a horrifying experience to go through. So yeah, I understand why she might shut down for a bit. But then everyone just kind of freaks out about how they're losing her. And Haida, just like after getting the app confirmation, storms into her house, drags her to karaoke, with his grand plan to shake her out of the funk is to musically yell at her, to spark a reaction and get her mad enough to stay out of this depressive state. Which, first off, I like this scene. It's a little weird at first glance, as he is really just berating her into having a reaction. Like, there are good intentions. I like how he points out that Retsuko is letting her attacker win by letting this one loser ruin her life by shutting down like this, and Haida just really needs her to fight, and to not let her beat herself up like that. Yet, the optics of how this scene happens aren't the best, as like, Retsuko isn't in a depressive state for months, or even weeks. They're only just now worrying about her job potentially firing her, and based on Japanese labor laws, that could be anywhere from like 10 to 18 days. So them just jumping in like this still kind of feels like they're just interfering with her recovery process, as all people respond to trauma differently. So for Haida to insert himself into her life, to try and prompt her to power through this, it doesn't really feel right, as he really is just yelling at her about how she should be dealing with this. Not enough time has passed to make this emergency measure feel warranted. So rather than getting this big climactic conclusion where he rejects Inui to be with Retsuko, it builds to this confused romantic cliff note, where it's like, oh yeah, he says he likes her, because app, but something might happen in the future. But that's the same thing that the show has been selling us on for 3 seasons, and I'm over it. You can't give Haida nothing, make his defining characteristic pining for Retsuko while giving her all these great formative moments thanks to her relationships, as it just makes Haida look so much worse by comparison, and kills your enthusiasm for them as a couple. Especially since there's no real progression. They aren't getting closer or building to anything. Not until season 3 do we feel like there's been any kind of change. Everything is just always on hold, and all I want is for someone here to pick Tadano. The final insult to injury though is definitely season 4, where they do actually get together, and it's terrible. See, season 4 switches things up, giving other characters more spotlight, which is great, but it reduces Haida and Retsuko to just being a romantic subplot, and even worse, it kinda sucks, as the romance between them has never been the best part of the show, and now what limited screen time they're getting is focusing entirely on that. Haida is somehow choking even harder now than he was when he was just trying to pretend to be her guy friend, chickening out at every opportunity to upgrade their relationship, refusing to even enter her apartment for coffee. This man is looking for reasons to fail, and it's not appealing, especially when literally everyone else in this show is working harder to get these two laid than they are.
Haida and I would have gotten too close and just hurt each other. This is definitely for the best.
The entire office just wants these two to hook up so they can move on with their lives. And I can relate, with the answer to all their problems just being the so painfully simple, just tell him how you feel. Like, my God, a revelation, such wisdom. Did we really sit through 4 seasons just to hear that? Retsuko tells him that she likes him, leaves. He runs to her apartment to tell her he likes her. Now they're dating. Huzzah! And how do they spend the rest of the season? Well, they spend it fighting due to miscommunication. After learning all they need to do is to communicate. This is the thing that made season 4 unbearable to me. They finally hook up, but they only hook up so they can milk the drama of Haida being the main character and doing something stupid. As he ignores Retsuko's concerns for their old boss Ton, who the company bullied into quitting, Haida blames the victim of capitalism, with Retsuko teaming up with her tech billionaire ex to monetize her YouTube channel to get the old guy a new job. Which feels a little weird, because this ass is rich, and he could easily give him a job. But because Retsuko didn't tell Haida about her new side hustle and consultant, he catches the two of them together, which flares up ye old insecurities about not being good enough for her, which drives him into the arms of his new business daddy, who has him committing fraud. Retsuko then has to put a whole Ocean's 11 team together to stop him, with the season highlight being her slapping Haida for trying to use her to justify his actions. Like, he even tries to pick a fight with Tadano. The thing the show has been building up to for years happens, and it's the worst part of the season. And I feel like that just sums up this ship in a nutshell. Haida as a character, he's not terrible, but how he's used by the story absolutely is. I want to root for him, but the story is giving me nothing. It makes all the scenes dealing with his cringe fails painful. I thought it was fine in season 1, they were clearly doing a thing, but by season 2, I needed some initiative. But all we got was a retread, with season 3 giving us an alternative before swinging around and awkwardly making it a couple thing again. At every opportunity, Haida as a love interest either fails or underwhelms, with that lack of engagement making it just hard to care about them, as the crux of a will good they won't they story is that tension, that romantic zest that it might happen inch closer and closer, only to pull back at the last second. And even when the endgame is obvious, it doesn't feel like there's a foregone conclusion. There is a battle to get here, while in Aggretsuko, there is none. Haida is always on the sidelines of Retsuko's love life. There's no buildup, no passion, just a story telegraphing that they'll be a couple while we all roll our eyes at the cringe. And if everyone else in the story has to work this hard to make it happen, it's probably not worth the effort. And going by just season 4, it definitely wasn't. Still like the show, but this is one ship I don't care for. All that said, season 5 is really good. And they are adorable in it. Love the depiction of adult dating, and honestly, this is what season 4 should have been. Minus the whole lying to your girlfriend about being homeless bit. That was really dumb.